Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, everybody. Today we are going to be discussing a panel debate between men's rights activists, including a self-proclaimed incel and some fiery feminists. So let's get into it.
Would you call yourself a feminist?
I would.
Yes, an intersectional feminist.
Oh shit, here we go again.
When you hear the word feminism, what comes to mind?
Marxism?
To me, feminism is fairness.
I think that it's unfortunately misguided.
Feminism is a flawed movement.
When you hear the phrase men's rights, what comes to mind?
Aggression.
Advocating for the human rights of man as a class.
I start laughing.
I believe men and women are different, but equal.
I know as a woman that I don't have the same physical strengths. Men and women are built differently. I think whenever things are built differently, it's for a reason, right? But at the same time, the amount of limits that have been put on women historically, like the fact that not too long ago we were just allowed to start voting. Even today, like the wage gap, just all types of stuff, like women just don't have a lot of rights that are just, it should have nothing to do with what gender we are to be able to be paid equally or just be treated with respect. So, yeah.
I do believe that, of course, there are biological differences between men and women. And of course, there should also be legal equality. Of course, I disagree with the idea that women face systemic discrimination. You just mentioned the wage gap, which has been debunked so many times.
Yes, good man curse that. Yes, it has been debunked many times, including on Rattlesnake TV.
I've studied evolutionary biology quite a bit. And men and women are very different from not just a physical, the bone structure, the neurological department as well as the chemical balances. And also, I don't believe that men and women are equal under the law either, or they should be rather. Children are not equal under the law. And it's not because we hate children, it's because we love them and we want to protect them.
Derek, you were doing so well with the evolutionary biology until you then had to go and make the children comparison. This man has got to be a troll.
I want to note that you brought up children being unequal to adults. I just hope you weren't comparing women to children.
I mean, it was technically a comparison of women and children.
I don't need you to protect me. I just need you not to harm me. I can protect myself. I'm very capable of doing what I need to do. Okay?
Okay, sure.
100%.
Derek is a troll. Derek is a 1,000,000% troll. He's trying to trigger these women. And I actually reckon, even though she would probably belt him, her points are just as ridiculous. I mean, the only reason why you don't need protection, like you're saying, is because you live in a safe Western country. And, you don't have to look too far. She's clearly got the whole I don't need no man thing happening. And only in Western societies can we have that, because the poorer a country gets, the closer men and women revert back to their gender roles. So there's actually copious evidence throughout history to suggest that a cultural shift towards androgyny is synonymous with the collapse of civilization. And it's not to say that she's talking about androgyny, but what these people normally hint at is some sort of gender fluidity and how male and female roles are societal constructs, and that women can do everything a man can do everything that a woman can do. Just flat out not true. And it's only when societies get to the very top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs that they start to delve into these questions. And I think that if the crises that we've been seeing in the West over the past few years were to get much, much worse, and our supply chains were to break down, this energy crisis was to amplify, I think that we would, as a society, stop having this conversation. Let's hope we don't find out.
Toxic masculinity is real.
I think that toxic masculinity is definitely a real thing. It's kind of just the idea of what masculinity should be, but it goes wrong a lot of the times, saying that violence, sex, power, being a controlling person makes you a man.
It is so painful to listen to sometimes when feminists try and talk about masculinity. You're just throwing out random bad words. Violence, sex, power, needing to control people. What the hell has that got to do with masculinity? A masculine man has the capability to be violent, but a masculine man has that under control. What do you mean by sex? You're just saying things. You and your girlfriends don't sit around and talk about sex? Yes, you do. Give me a break. And power. Being a CEO of a company, having decision-making power, having physical power. Power can come in so many different ways. And guess what? Women are attracted to powerful men more than anything. So if you're going to put that in the toxic masculinity basket, then we better talk about why men strive to be powerful.
I see it in very unfortunate places, like when the young men or boys in my family, even from like toddler age, are told, you shouldn't be crying, boys don't cry. And what that turns into, I see it when I'm in a bookstore and a guy who tries to get my number says, why y'all always gotta act like that? And he sincerely had this like cracking voice, like he was hurt, but it was an entitlement. And that's toxic masculinity. It's saying like, you don't realize how your behavior is harmful.
So you're in a bookstore and some guy comes up and asks you for your number, and then he's got a cracking in his voice, and that's entitlement, is it? Or maybe it takes balls to come up and ask you for your number. And maybe he was a bit nervous and that's why his voice was cracking. You probably shamed him when he came over. And also, it's not in a nightclub or a bar, it's in a bookstore. I don't think that these toxically masculine chads are all hanging out in the bookstore trying to get themselves a copy of Moby Dick.
I think that, when you're showing your emotions, especially to random people, random women in some cases, they will view you as weak. I was raised by a single mother. I love her. She's my mom. I love her. But I could have used being told to act like a man. I think back, there were some cases where I was too emotional, and that negatively affected how I, what happened to me.
Yes, Derek, you absolutely could have used that. And it does bring up a pretty good point here, because fatherlessness is a gigantic problem for young men and women. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that our friend Derek here, when he says that he was raised by a single mum, had no shortage of the nurturing love, no shortage of the crusts being cut off his sandwiches.
Man, bathroom!
What, hon?
Bathroom!
But seriously though, him to me screams lack of father figure. And I've seen this with so many different guys. They get raised just by the mother, and the mother does absolutely everything for them, and they never ever learn personal responsibility. They never learn resilience. These guys, they often end up super lost in the world. Like, they were always told that just be a nice guy. Oh, you're such a sweet boy. You're such a kind boy. And then they get out into the real world, and when they realize that they've been lied to this whole time, and if they don't go down the male feminist path, these guys are pissed off because nobody ever taught them how to be a man. And oftentimes these guys will look for a woman who can play the role that their mother played in their life. But women don't find them attractive. It's a cyclical thing.
I don't think showing emotions is a sign of weakness. I actually think it's a sign of strength. Men do live shorter lives, and that's because of a repression of emotions, and that's due to many things that patriarchy has instilled.
Repression of emotions.
It has been shown that a person's well-being, their lifespan is shortened when they are not able to express their emotions. In addition, when they don't have physical touch or when they don't have a partner to keep them company.
Ah, it's because men don't cry and because patriarchy that we die younger.
Oh my god, it's only got one.
Today, women have more advantages than men.
It's not just in the workforce, it's also, I would say, it's a lot easier for a woman to find a relationship, even if she, says finding the right guy is so hard. It really isn't. But sometimes for a lot of guys, finding a girl at all is hard.
It's part of that entitlement for men. You're not entitled a conversation with me. You're not entitled to my number.
That aside, it's like, are you going to make one example of the entitlement of men when it comes to asking for your number be the all-encompassing thing that all men have a problem when it comes to approaching women?
Well, firstly, it's not just an example. It's not necessarily all men. I don't dislike men. I love sports. I play video games. I have bros. I hang out with dudes. I have bros.
Let me smash, please.
We just want men to realize that if you have friends that are having locker room talk, as a man, as an ally, please say something to your friends.
Do you think repressing that is really the solution here, though? If it's in a healthy male space.
There's nothing
I don't think that's
about
healthy. I think it's
There's
toxic
nothing-
in itself.
I mean, if you're making jokes and you're doing all of that.
Jokes that are harmful jokes are not healthy because they just lead to people normalizing things. People always say, oh, it's just a joke, but when someone else hears it, they don't realize how that resonates, and again, how that turns into violence. Like, this is not an isolated situation. I'm only thinking of 3 off the top of my head because if I think of too many, I'm gonna spiral
So
right now.
what's the alternative? Men shouldn't talk about these things.
No, I think
No
men
one's
can
ever
have a
said
healthy
that.
dialogue. I don't think men have to be toxic in order to have a conversation. I know plenty of men that are able to have conversations about healthy, productive things, just like women are.
Men need to have conversations about healthy, productive things just like women are. I think that we simply emote differently, and it works for both of us. Women are overtly emotional. They'll talk about their feelings, they'll go to brunch with the gals and bitch about their friends all day, and when they feel emotional, they'll cry about it, they'll let it out. Fantastic. Works for you. Doesn't work for us. And also, ladies, don't act like behind closed doors you guys aren't saying some nasty shit too, because we know you do it, except we don't want into your spaces. In fact, we couldn't think of anything worse. When you guys are having your sleepovers and wearing your face masks and having pillow fights, we want to get as far away as possible. For some reason, when it comes to the locker room and what we get up to there, you guys want all up in our business.
Well, it's not obviously something that I have personal experience with, but only 1% of all people on the death row are women in this country. So when women and men commit identical crimes, women are much more likely to, for example, escape the death penalty. And that's just plain sex-based discrimination.
I feel that the other side does not understand my values.
I think a lot of times when a movement is created, the other side thinks that they're being attacked or think that it's some like attempt at erasure. That's not what feminism is about at all. What do you need a whole men's rights activism movement for? I'm sincerely confused.
Well, I mean, like, I will advocate for positive masculinity and what men should represent and healthy outlets for men. Like, I still think the Boy Scouts should be exclusively the Boy Scouts, for example, one of those things. Where I would like to think that we could get some common ground is when it comes to the clear biases that are in the court system, especially in the marriage and family court system.
The things that stand valid, like that I'm hearing from y'all that are like valid to me, come from a place of like, I'm treated like unfairly by the system. Versus a lot of the things women are saying, it's also America in the system as well, but a lot of it is like harm from men.
How and where?
How and where what?
Where's this harm from men coming from?
Okay, it started when I was young. I'm not gonna talk too long. I was 16, got a bottle thrown at me because I told a boy no. It started when I was in a club, a boy touched me, I said no, he kept touching me, it got to the point he got violent. It gets to the point that the only reason why a man decided to stop touching me in the bookstore I talked about earlier is because he realized my husband was not too far away, and he said, sorry bro, never said sorry to me. That's why, and that's off the top of my head. This is why I get upset, because I'm like, I'm here to talk about like how you feel, but when you just dismiss the fact that women actually have experiences, that's when it seems like it's about more than your rights. It seems like it's about your ego. And that's where I get pissed off, because how dare you tell another human being that their experiences, what they're telling you right in front of your face, is not valid.
I didn't say they were invalid, I said how and why. I'm trying to understand.
How and why?
and
Because
listen.
it happened. It happened many times. It happened yesterday. It happened the day before.
Okay.
So before you're saying that this dude asked you for your phone number in the bookstore, and now you're saying that he was touching you. And just because you're more emotional doesn't make you more right. This is a problem with our modern dialogue. People think that the more offended I get, the more right I am. And this is just another perfect example of sign language. I talked about this with the panel debate that I broke down 2 days ago. Sign language is shame, insult, guilt, and need to be right. She's shaming him and guilt tripping for asking a simple question. He did not even refer to any of those things that she's just accused him of.
I think some of the things that you guys are touching on, such as the court system and gender roles, are a subject of patriarchy, and that's part of what women are trying to dismantle, is those traditional gender roles.
Are there any feminist organizations that have done anything, for example, to challenge bias against men and fathers in the family court system?
Absolutely.
Can you please give me like a list of feminist advocacy organizations that have engaged in any meaningful advocacy to address those issues? Because there are actually none.
Okay, I know that you came with your little research or whatever. a little research or whatever. I didn't come with a list of like feminist organizations, but I know actively that there are women's organizations that are trying to dismantle those inequalities.
Just one name, just one
Again, I
organization.
didn't come with a list, my dude.
There are no such organizations.
Again.
Another perfect example of sign language. She can't match him intellectually. The points that he's making are too strong. My man's come prepared. She hasn't, clearly. She's just saying more words that everyone normally agrees with her about and makes her seem really smart. And when she's actually challenged in a meaningful way,
Shame.
Men and women should be allies.
Men, unfortunately, many of them don't want to even have this open dialogue that we're sharing right now. We need men to help be allies, to help speak to other men.
It strikes me like the way you phrase this, you almost want men to say certain things that you want them to say, as opposed to maybe actually listening to what they're saying.
What certain
Like
things would I want to
just
hear?
kind of like men being allies, men talking to other men, etc. I'm completely okay with that, but I'm not going to repeat like feminist talking points to other men.
We all believe different things. We may be under the label of men's rights activists, but for example, I'm probably the most traditionalist person here. I think we should be allies, but maybe us being allies in a patriarchy wouldn't be so bad. You know, us going back to the past wouldn't be so bad. It would probably be a lot happier if we were, you know, getting married and staying married and having kids and, you know, going to church and all that la-di-da-di-da.
he's not making a terrible point. Societies as a whole are much happier and healthier when marriage rates are higher, birth rates are higher, families are staying together, communities are stronger, and all of that la-di-da-di-da, as he says. But he knows that when he says patriarchy, he's going to trigger them. You can interpret that how you want. But if you say that to people with the modern day interpretation of patriarchy, especially in the cultural discussion, they're just going to think a male-dominated, oppressive power structure, and it does not move the needle at all.
I feel empathy for the other side.
I don't think there's ever a time in my life where a person says they're hurting and I don't at least try to listen or understand. My only thing is that I want the same in return. So when I'm genuinely saying I'm hurting or I've been through something, and it's not just a personal experience, because I actively do this work and surround myself with women saying I've been hurt by a man before. I get that you have stories, but I mean, that's actually my question. I haven't heard y'all stories. Like, I've sat up here and said I have 3 on the top of my head. I have about 30 plus probably, and I haven't heard y'all say this is what happened to me.
Yeah, good. We don't want to hear everyone's stories. It's not a game about who's the oppressedest. It's not a competition about who's got the saddest life. This is a discussion about large-scale societal issues. This is adults having conversations about serious things. And generally, when you do that, unless it's very necessary, you try your best to leave your own emotional biases and your anecdotal stories out of it.
Okay, I feel empathy for women being lost, being misguided. Look, I don't know. You can go.
Do you have any bit of empathy for anything we said up here?
Yes, I really do feel empathy for
Why
women.
was that so hard to say? Like, for the stuff that we said, do you have any bit of empathy for the stories I said up here?
Yeah,
I just want to know.
I do.
Like,
yes.
I'm not even trying to be hostile. I just genuinely want to know.
Yeah, I just think that like a lot of the problems that have happened in your life are because society is not patriarchal. It's not traditional. It's we're gone. We're lost. We're in a fallen state, right?
There is a change of guard, not necessarily a change of guard, but things are evolving, things are changing. And I feel like a lot of men speak from a viewpoint almost of fear. A lot of men are having a hard time grasping that and feeling comfortable with it.
I do feel empathy for your personal experience, but I cannot sympathize with your ideological position, because that ideological position is built on a fallacy, and that fallacy is actually that's causing very real consequences for men as a class in this country. So I understand that you are here with us as kind of the good feminist, so to speak, that you feel empathy for men, and I believe you, but I do not believe your movement, and I do not believe your ideology.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you liked that one, then you will love the breakdown I did of feminists trying to shame conservative women on a Vice panel. So click here to watch that one, and make sure you subscribe to Rattlesnake TV.